And I was saying before you were there that my mic is pointing the right way now.
It sounds much, much, much better. It really does. Welcome to GCP Life, episode number 6, a podcast where we talk about Google Cloud and tech. This show is sponsored by Kasna. I'm your host, Stephen Bancroft. And on this show, Google makes an acquisition, BigQuery gets a new feature, we take a look back at GCP improvements for 2021, we have some security news, business news, and we have yet another new website. But before we get to any of that, I want to introduce to you the co-host that comes all the way from the other side of the ditch, Ida Bailey. How are you going, Ida?
Hey, I'm going good. Cheers.
That mic sounds great this week.
It's pointing in the right direction.
That's good. That's good. And we're back for 2022, first episode of the year. How are you feeling about it, Ida?
I'm really into it. It's been getting into summer and going to the beach, and yeah, it's good.
Did you have any projects you got stuck into over the break?
Yeah, I took a look at Temporal, which is a kind of microservices cluster orchestration workflow engine thing that kind of came out of Uber. Been fiddling around with that. We use it at work, and I probably need to know a bit more about it. So that's kind of what I was doing. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, maybe we can get a little bit of a breakdown on the show, one of the latest shows this year.
Yeah. It's really interesting.
Well, my news is I got my dev cert.
Nice.
I set that in December. I got that. That makes it my 5th Google Cloud professional certification. And to be honest with you, it wasn't that difficult. It really wasn't that difficult to cert. I don't know. Maybe it's because I got all the other certs to go along with it, and I'd been working a bit with some of the things they talk about. But I felt pretty good about it when I walked out, and I freaked myself out a little bit before I started because I found an exam guide for the older exam. They must have changed the exam at some point. I found an exam guide for that, and there was a lot of things in it that I hadn't been studying. A lot of SQL questions in the older exam, and they've taken that all out of this version of the Dev Cert.
Interesting, yeah. It's not my strong suite.
No. So I did brush up on SQL before I went in, which is actually fine because I'm now studying for the database certification. So that's probably going to be handy. But I think they'd taken the SQL stuff out and replaced it with a lot of Kubernetes questions. So there was a fair amount of Kubernetes stuff in there. But nothing couldn't work out. I mean, it was nearly a month ago now I set that, so I can't recall all the details. But look, not a problem. I'd actually recommend if you do have even the slightest bit of developer experience and you have no cloud experience and you want to get a certification, probably get that one first if you're after a Google Cloud certification. I reckon go for that one first. Probably the easiest way in.
How many more do you have to get?
Well, there's 3 more. There's the database. I think it's database and ML. They put that into one. There's the AI certification and the collaboration professional certification. So, look, the collaboration one interests me the least.
I think there's one more, which is the Google Cloud Fellow, I think, which is the hybrid multi-cloud. How much can you use Anthos one?
Yeah, but that's a bit different. The fellow one, I think you've got to sit a panel interview.
Yeah, you do.
You've got to be put forward by someone from Google or someone who already is a fellow. And then you've got to pass the certification, and then there's a panel interview, and there's a whole lot. We'll talk about multi-cloud a little bit later in the show, but yeah, that might be a goal, not for this year, but maybe the next year. Look, the other little thing I did during the break was I moved my personal blog to GCP. I'd been thinking about doing it for a while, and I'd been on the same hosting company for well over 10 years, and I had probably 2 or 3 times where the WordPress instance got compromised, and look, it may have been my own fault. I hadn't updated it or whatever, but I wanted to put Cloud Armor on it, and have all the other stuff there as well. I had a few other ideas of things I wanted to do. So yeah, I swung it all over, and pretty painless, really. I used this Lightspeed web server. I don't know if you've used this, Cider.
No, I haven't.
So yeah, it's a PHP, PHP runtime. And if you just go into the marketplace and you just ask for a WordPress instance on Ubuntu, for instance, you'll get like a full Ubuntu server, 2004, and they'll put WordPress on it, and it's running in a full, E2 standard instance. But there is an alternative one from the marketplace, which is Lightspeed, and runs on a Lightspeed web server, and it runs on an F1 micro instance. And by the time I put a load balancer and CDN cache in front of it, oh boy, it flies. It absolutely flies, and it costs probably about half what I was paying with the web hosting mob. So couldn't be happier with that. And of course, there's a lot of static files in there. My blog's all about my music, so I got my music on there, and there's some larger sort of static files in there. So that's all in a bucket, and it all points towards that, and it's great. It just serves it out of there. Works really well. So that was a little thing that kept me busy over the break. And I was going to complain about this Chrome tab on this Chrome bug on Linux, but they've just fixed it, so I'm not going to complain about that anymore. For about 2 weeks, haven't been able to move tabs around in Chrome, but we can now. So it was really painful, really, really painful. Cool. All right. Well, let's get cracking. So the first item here we want to talk about is Google acquires Siemplify. This was all over the place, and it's a pretty big deal, I thought. So according to the Google Cloud blog, Siemplify, a leading security organization, automation, and response provider, SOAR. So we'll probably use that term SOAR, SOAR, a little bit in this discussion. Siemplify shares our vision in this space and will join Google Cloud's security team to help companies better manage their threat response. So they're a threat response company. They set up automation and threat responses around threats. With Siemplify, we will change the rules on how organizations hunt, detect, and respond to threats. So just to sum it up, the Siemplify platform is an intuitive workbench that enables security teams to both manage risk better and reduce the cost of addressing threats. So I imagine this is more or less going to work out the way Stackdriver did. They're going to integrate it. It'll probably be pulled into the security tab in the console, and it'll just become part of the workflow.
Yeah, it's interesting how it's being, I guess, integrated in Chronicle. I haven't really had a chance to use Chronicle, but the Chronicle was pretty groundbreaking when it kind of got showcased by Google and incorporated. Just for the performance and just, I was hearing about how it's used internally at Google and be able to let's look at this network packet from 3 weeks ago, instantly identify traffic within sub 3 seconds across the entire Google Cloud's network, internal network and stuff. It's pretty interesting. Just that kind of performance. But yeah, that automation part and the response part, it's going to be interesting. I haven't played with Siemplify. I've played with a few other Siems, but the Israeli companies usually build some pretty good stuff.
Yeah, okay, I hadn't thought of it that way. Being a Seam, it's giving you that sort of overwatch on everything, right? It just sort of pulls everything into a single place.
And that identifying particular threats and patterns of traffic and, a whole bunch of log patterns and probably some
right.
AI thrown in there,
Yep. Like an IDS. Yeah, okay. So sort of the next level IDS. Yeah. Siemplify allows security operations center analysts to manage their operations from end to end, respond to cyber threats with speed and precision, and get smarter with every analyst interaction. So, this sounds great. There's another article I pulled up where this will be linked in the show notes. This is on SC Media, Cloud Security Media. The author of this is Andrew Maloney. He makes a couple of good points. He says that this basically spells the end for pure play standalone SOAR vendors. Siemplify was one of only a handful of remaining standalone SOAR vendors, and now the shadow pool has become even more sparse. So this technology that Siemplify has is going to be exclusively available on Google Cloud now. So if you're, a sole player, then that basically takes them out of the picture for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that's this whole homogenization of the market, right? We see it with web browsers. We see it, with a lot of technologies. Everything just sort of comes down to a single thing, right?
Yeah, like Activision being bought by Microsoft. There was a bit of a
if we were a gaming podcast, we'd be all over that article right now. Boy, oh boy, what a buy. Yeah. $70 billion or something. Boy, oh boy. Anyway. And then going on with this article here, SOAR technologies, this is an interesting point, solidifies the bifurcation of the SOAR market. SOAR technologies have failed to deliver on their original promise to automate away the human element in security investigations by taking over orchestration and response to threats and incidents. In reality, very few security issues have end-to-end predictability with binary outcomes. So I think what he's saying there is every time there's a new CVE or a new security, everyone panics about, it's something different. How can it be predictable? I mean, you're constantly adding, if you're going to use AI to predict it, sure, you're constantly adding to the pool with a new threat, but every time they seem different. I don't know. What do you think on that?
I think half are different and half are just the same terrible things we see over and over again.
Well, they're the low-hanging fruit, right? They're the easy ones to get, like open buckets and stuff like that.
Yeah, like path traversal was, it's just, that shouldn't be in things these days, but it is. I'd say, doing probably behaviors around, say, internal threats. So, like I know internal threat actors and there's a lot of behavioral analysis that goes into identifying what a particular user is doing at a particular time for, say, 6 months. And all of a sudden, what if there's some activity at 3 a.m? These kind of models can pick it up. So what are the anomalies and then flag those for someone to go and have a look at. So what are the first things that people open on their desktop? That's probably the same thing. But if all of a sudden there's a new session and a whole bunch of different things pop up that are not normal, that kind of behavioral analysis is usually quite important, and you can get some pretty good signals from that if they are following similar patterns.
Yeah. Well, I mean, humans are habitual in what they do and in their nature. So yeah, I never thought of it from that perspective. Yeah, absolutely, you could analyze people with it, right? That's where the threats are coming from. So yeah, I mean, there's a few things there to consider with this. Take a look at that. We've got the links in the show notes there. Read the blog and then have a read of Andrew Maloney's article as well. He has a good spin on it. We might move on here and we'll take a look at BigQuery. Now this is a cool new feature that's been launched in BigQuery. Now I have to admit, I read through this and I had to read it again. And then I kind of read it a third time, and I think I know what's going on. So mind you, it was last week I read it. what this is allowing us to do now, there's a new feature in BigQuery. Today, we're announcing a public preview for the BigQuery native JSON data type, a capability which brings support for storing and analyzing semi-structured data in BigQuery. Interesting. So effectively, you can just add a column onto your table, and then you can just ingest semi-structured data straight in. And then you can refer to that just with a dot notation and just refer to it like any other piece of data in a database.
Yeah, the interesting thing is, it's schemaless, so you don't need to basically predefine everything that's going on first. You can just chuck it in there and see what happens. And then, just use a familiar, dot notation, like, if anyone lives on the command line has used JQ to, pass JSON, same language, same things you just query.
So where does this leave Bigtable then?
I think it was probably the final kind of missing piece. I think it's my understanding is everything had to be kind of, you had to define your schema up front, and you had to have it well known before you chucked it in there. But JSON's very, very well supported, particularly in the Python community. So whether, I think this covers probably a lot of use cases that, and it probably speeds up a lot of development for people who want to just quickly chuck something in and get that performance from BigQuery.
Right, yeah. So you don't need to be parsing it and putting it into a structured database beforehand. You can just get it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great for like high-speed IoT things, and if you're pulling stuff in through BigQuery, through PubSub, and you want high throughput, I guess.
Yeah, and for probably, I don't know if you might want to use it for logs, or you have a whole bunch of different log sources that are all kind of have different structures, and you want to kind of query across all of them. You could just check it all on the same thing. Probably best approach. You could if you want.
If you really needed to do it, I guess performance would be the key factor there, right? I mean, you could. Yeah. Yeah, anyway, link to the blog in the show notes there, guys. The blog's great because it does break down some Python code on exactly how to bring JSON into BigQuery. You can enroll in the feature preview by signing up here. So you need to get the preview first, and then you'll get access to this feature. All right, another item from Google was a blog post that was posted towards the end of last year, 23rd of December, from Sachin Gupta. And he sort of broke down what new features were introduced to Google Cloud during 2021. Good read. Some of these things I hadn't heard about. A couple of call-outs were VMware expansion, which we did discuss on the show. The introduction of Tau CPUs, Spot VMs, backup for GKE, custom dual region for cloud buckets, which is a great one because I know some of our clients have got data that has to stay within Australia, and if you selecting dual region, it's great to be able to pick exactly where you want those buckets to be. Private Service Connect and BYOIP, just to name a few.
The biggest one for me, I guess, was that Private Service Connect, which basically opens up a lot of the the serverless functions and Cloud Run and stuff, and being able to use them like at an enterprise level within like a private VPC makes it much more secure. Where previously, if you had to use them, there'd be some kind of public endpoint, and then it would just, even if you couldn't really block that. So yeah, it's quite a big thing last year.
Yeah, Private Service Connect is great. It means you can just lock everything away in its own little bubble. And you don't even need to have SSH ports open, right? You just go in via IAP and everything's behind the walled fortress. Yeah. They do call that out specifically in this blog. Developers want to focus on code, not configuring, managing or scaling infrastructure to help we worked on simplifying network with new services such as Private Service Connect, which allows you to connect VPCs to applications and services securely without configuring all the network underlay. Yeah, great feature. So some of the features here, just going back to the Tau VMs, I wasn't aware of this one. Tau VMs offer 56% higher absolute performance and 42% higher price performance compared to general purpose VMs from any of the leading public cloud vendors. So that's a good one to know if you're setting up Tau VMs. Backup for GKE. We're particularly excited about how this new option for GKE users allows you to more easily meet your service level objectives for automated common backup and recovery tasks and show reporting from compliance and audit purposes. That's another great one as well. BYOIP. So you don't need to change your IP address. I mean, that's great because, that might be a bit of an off-put for someone trying to migrate into Google Cloud. They don't want to lose their IP, but now you don't have to. And we enhance cloud load balance with advanced traffic management, regional and hybrid app delivery to load balance traffic between on-prem and cloud networks. We also introduced IPv6, DNS Policy Manager, Cloud Domains, GKE Gateway Controller, ePPF Data Plane, and Service Directory, all with the goal of making networking easier for developers. That's a lot. They packed a lot in last year with that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a few things in there that I wasn't aware of. Take a look at that. There might be some stuff that interests you. I'm definitely going to go away and have a bit of a look at these Tau VMs and some of the networking stuff too interests me as well. All right, moving on. Another GCP item here. Cloud Marketplace drops commissions, strengthens channel. What's this all about, Ida?
So, like you were mentioning before, that Lightspeed kind of marketplace solution. There's a thing called ISVs, independent software vendors. You can, create products to sell within the Google Cloud Marketplace. Similar to, Azure or AWS. Usually there's a revenue sharing thing that goes on when you sell something through that. Google will have been taking 20%. And now they've dropped that down to 3%. So a massive reduction on how much money they're taking. So if you were going to develop a product and try and resell it on Google Cloud Marketplace, then you'd be getting a lot more money in your pocket. So particularly things for, say, IBM or Red Hat, they must be very happy about this. Though actually they're the same company now, aren't they?
Well, they've been the same company for a few years, but yeah. A little point I took away from this article, unlike AWS and Microsoft Azure, Google has not allowed resellers to sell third-party Google Cloud Marketplace solutions. This is a key difference between Google and competitors AWS and Microsoft Azure, which do permit ISVs that latitude. That's changing in 2022.
Yeah, it'd be interesting just to see what people push out. I was just wondering, what would be a high seller in the marketplace?
So what does that mean effectively? So if I build something out and put it in the marketplace and deploy it as a deployment or whatever, does that mean I'm allowed to sell it directly?
Well, I think this is more around if you say you've got a solution that runs on Google Cloud, but you kind of reselling part of that. From what I can read in the documentation, it's saying like ISVs will be able to build industry-specific 5G and edge solutions, leveraging the Google Cloud ecosystem and also telecommunication providers and the 140 Google Network Edge locations. So I don't think it's specifically like just single, like a marketplace application that you click on deploy. It's more of a broader kind of maybe industry-wide solution or something that at a kind of higher level.
So to run on the Google Distributed Cloud, which we mentioned in an episode last year, I think. Actually, they launched it at Next, didn't they, last year? Yeah. Okay, so it's for solutions to run on that. Yeah, they seem to be conflating the two here in this article. All right. Well, interesting to see how that pans out. And yeah, interesting they've dropped the revenue share as well. They're certainly not worried about money, are they?
No.
All right, look, we'll move on to what I thought was the security items, and they're kind of interesting, tangentially related to Google Cloud, but this is a Google one, kind of a bit of a fun one, and a bit of a like, you don't say. A new wave of phishing attacks. This is an article from govinfosecurity.com. A new wave, which was what January 8 came out. A new wave of phishing attacks has been identified in which hackers exploit a vulnerability in the comments features of Google Docs. And it's funny when they write this. I wouldn't call it a vulnerability. It's a feature, right? It's a feature. In this attack, hackers are adding a comment to the Google Doc, okay, which is something you can do. The comment mentions the target with an @ okay, that's something you can do. By doing so, an email is automatically sent to that person's inbox. In that email, which comes from Google, the full comment, including the bad links and text, is included. Further, the email address isn't shown, just the attacker's name, making this ripe for impersonators, says Jeremy Fuchs from the Cybersecurity Research Analysis at Avanan. So this is kind of like, you don't say. You know what I mean? Like, it's always been able to do this, and now someone's cottoned on to, ooh, okay, we can use this to send out a bit of a bit of phishing attack.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because, I mean, if I set up a slightly different domain name and then someone's got a public document and I sign in and then I @ someone and it's from like your boss at your domain, but it's slightly different, then you're like, oh, I better click on this link. And then, yeah, no, not a good idea.
Bingo, you're compromised, yeah. Look, I don't know if they fix this or not, but you can probably, there's probably, you can sense what the fix is going to be. They'll just put some restriction in there that only allows certain users to send emails.
Well, ideally, they filter out the URLs or send it through some other kind of safe link checking engine.
The article here does go on to say that researchers say that the email is difficult for scanners to stop and for end users to spot, which makes it harder for anti-spam filters to judge. Also, since these emails come directly from Google, they may appear more trustworthy. So we have a few factors there making this a difficult one to detect. And I guess really that's where the threat is, isn't it? Trying to actually detect this thing. Because it's always been able to do that. And, someone has to, going to be a manual thing. They're going to be sending out these, unless you could automate it somehow, I suppose you could. It's the fact that they can't detect it, right? I think that's really where the threat is.
Yeah, it doesn't look like there is a fix even for it. It just, there's some recommendations.
Yeah, no word of a fix in this article, but something may come up. Moving on to a couple of business items. We have the regulators in the UK. Now, this was interesting because the reason this twigged to me is because this sounds exactly like something the Australian government would do. The article is from Windows Central, Microsoft News, and dated the 10th of January, and starts out, what do Microsoft, Amazon, and Google have in common? Well, a number of things. Among those is the fact that the UK Prudential Regional Authority is taking an expanded look at the trio's cloud operations and how they may require additional oversight. The article goes on to say, beyond more oversight, the PRA is considering more disaster recovery tests and prep as a way to ensure operational resilience. This renewed scrutiny comes not long after an Amazon web server outage that took place in December of 2021. That exact same outage that we mentioned in the show during December.
Yeah, it's a huge risk as this everyone's moving to cloud, and it's kind of like, well, instead of having, everyone, or, so you've got 20 banks and they're all running from 20 different data centers, well, hopefully more than 20. Now it's all running from, the same ones. So,
Yeah.
The damage to an outage of, say if two regions went from AWS, then in, say, the UK, that's basically game over for the financial system, right?
One region. That AWS outage in December was US East, and it had global impacts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I don't know if this is the right approach. They're trying to regulate it away, regulate incidents away. You can't do that.
I think in some places there's some, regulation makes sense, and definitely making sure that some, disaster recovery scenarios are covered is probably a good thing that they're thinking about. But yeah, I think they're probably doing their best already. So that's the thing.
Yeah, this is the thing. There's so much control and so much due diligence in place around making sure there's no outages and making sure that things don't blow up. I think, the lawmakers and the politicians trying to come in and put some more on top of it, it doesn't help the situation. If anything, the whole DevOps movement has tried to do the opposite of that, right? It's tried to strip a lot of that away and automate that and make that as seamless as possible. And we are seeing advantages from that.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just unfortunate that occasionally when things break, the economy of scale, which is a big advantage with what we're doing, the economy of scale backfires and breaks everything all in one go.
Yeah, it's very, very fragile, particularly financial systems, and all of a sudden you can't trade on the stock market, or everything. Or I used to manage the land title system in Victoria, and like if it didn't work, it's like no one could register their mortgages, settlements would miss out. It would be total economic disaster. So it was
once the economy around housing stops, boy oh boy, it's a big problem.
And you miss it by one day, and it's like, well, everyone has to rewrite all the legal documents, everything.
Because they've got to date stamp everything. Yeah. Oh wow. So, us guys in operations and IT and anyone working in those fields, we're acutely aware of the need to not cause outages and not cause problems. And it's politicians and lawmakers are going to come and have a look at it. And I don't know. I don't know if I think they'll actually be surprised by what they find.
Yeah.
Let's just hope that doesn't filter down here to Australia, because that's the kind of thing that they would do. Anyway, another quick business item. CloudOps. CloudOps. You heard of this one, Ida? CloudOps.
Kind of. Slightly less clicky than ClickOps, is it?
Slightly less clicky than ClickOps. We know about DevOps, right? We know ClickOps. You know DevOps. DevOps. It's the conflagration between dev and ops, DevOps. Well, the idea here, the idea with CloudOps, like, okay, so you've got your DevOps team, and then you've got your security team, and then you've got your blah, blah, blah team, and then your blah, blah, blah team, your IoT ops maybe, right? ITO ops. Well, why not just combine all of that into one thing and just call them CloudOps?
What ops? If they're not doing development, then they're ops. It's kind of it. So DevOps are doing dev and ops. So,
which skill does CloudOps entail? There is no official list of which skills you need to practice CloudOps. Different folks will tell you that CloudOps entails somewhat different types of expertise. In general, however, the consensus is CloudOps requires mastery of the following. So cloud application deployment, right? Identity and access management, monitoring and observability, security, cloud networking, and cost management. Now, in a big organization, traditionally, all those areas would be divided into their independent silos. What CloudOps is doing is trying to unify all those things in the same way that DevOps brought the developers and operations together.
It's going to be pretty tricky. There's because cloud moves so fast. It's kind of like trying to run on 6 treadmills at the same time. it's a bit tricky. I think for probably it'd be good for someone to kind of cover at least 3 of those. But like particularly cloud security and cloud networking is very specialized. If you're going to have to talk about transit gateways or BGP pairing and VPN routing, and that's not something that someone's going to pick up
straight away. So there's a lot of intricacies there. What about the idea of knowing it sort of wide and shallow?
Yeah, I think that's useful in a like level 1 or 2 support role.
Yeah,
it's kind of.
But eventually, you've got to specialize, right? You got to go into the T, the T pattern, right? And then you've got to go deep at some point.
I think everyone ends up, finding something that they're interested in and working on that, figuring it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I guess these skills are pretty. It's probably going to segue into the next bit. But the multi-cloud, they apply to everything, whatever cloud you're doing.
I guess in smaller organizations and maybe architectural roles, you would need to know all of these areas. If you were designing something, definitely having a broad understanding of each of the areas would be beneficial, and then you could consult with the specialists, I guess.
I was actually doing to someone I know working in cloud building stuff, and they're actually building these teams now with like someone whose role is just a researcher full time. Their job is to research what the team could or should be doing, and then disseminating that to the rest of the team, and they just do POCs all day and read stuff and think about things. Then they're not an architect. They're kind of trying to cover everything. Which I thought was an interesting approach. I don't know how it'll work.
They're kind of like the mad scientists of the team, right?
Yeah, kind of. And they're like, I've got this funny idea. Maybe it'll work. And like, I'll spend a week on that and smashing it out, see what happens. While everyone else does the bit that delivers the value to work, I guess.
Right. This article finishes off with 2 points I think we just touched on there. The answer depends largely on 2 factors: how large and complex your cloud is, right? The bigger and more complicated your cloud, the more you stand to benefit from hiring engineers who specialize in the cloud, right? How large is your business? Mid-sized businesses that use cloud are likely to get more out of a CloudOps team. And I think that's what we're saying, right? If you've got a team that's broad, individuals that are broad, then sort of small to mid-sized business, that would suit them, right? Which can function as an alternative to maintaining separate teams of IT, networking, security, and DevOps engineers. Larger organizations are likely to have those other teams anyway. You won't gain as much from CloudOps. As for smaller businesses, they are lucky to simply have an IT ops team.
Yeah.
The last place I worked, we had, there was 5 of us, and then there was 4 of us, and then when I finally left there was 3 of us, and it was down to 2 in the IT ops team. So, we had to be gurus of all, jack of all trades, master of none, so to speak.
Yeah.
But it definitely does depend on the size of your team, but your business. But CloudOps is going to be a term you're going to see more and more of, I think. And yes, you're right, Ida. That does dovetail into our next item, which is this idea of multi-cloud fluency.
I've worked in all 3 of the clouds, and I've got the architect certs for all 3 a while ago. The patterns that I guess apply across all the clouds are basically the same. But it's really good to know the differences in what your particular cloud that you're working on's product is and how that differs. And that really can inform you on how you design and systems. So you really want to kind of use the strengths of the system that you're working with. And don't really understand it, I guess, as much as if you knew what was out there in the marketplace and other clouds.
So the fact that you would know how it's done in AWS, for instance, would that give you some ideas on, and I'm just thinking as an example here, on how something could be done better in GCP or a better way to implement the same thing in GCP?
Yeah, so for example, like in Azure, when you spin up a VM, it takes like a long time compared to GCP, and it's up, within 10, 20 seconds. And that just you can probably design systems slightly differently if you know, I guess, what they're really good at, particularly like BigQuery, which doesn't really have it's a kind of a closed source Google product, doesn't really have another competing product in Azure or AWS. There's a few other slightly similar things, but they're very they're very tailored, I guess, particularly use cases. And so you really have to know those use cases for I'd say for some of those specialized products, like Bigtable and BigQuery are very different. And you've got things, Cosmos DB and all the data lake products that Azure have got.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, the blog here on the Google Cloud blog here has a few interesting points. 76% of employers are already using multiple clouds in some fashion, with more than 50% flagging lack of skills among their employees as a top challenge to survival in the cloud. So, on one hand, you have businesses that are just going crazy and putting stuff in clouds all over the place, and part of that's probably some shadow IT, I'd imagine. But then you've got 50% of those same companies, I would imagine, saying, well, we don't actually have the skills to do it. And I've encountered this with some of our clients. They want it, they know cloud's going to be better, but they're not skilled or don't have the time to do it, or no motivation to do it. So you find a juxtaposition in that way, and going back to what you were saying with the similar patterns between all of them. If you get into one cloud, then it's pretty, I'm not going to say easy, but you've already got a schema in place in your mind to help you with the second cloud. So it's kind of a funny situation where they've just got to get over that hurdle, right? They've got to get over that bridge, jump over that hurdle. Once they jump over that hurdle and they're into it, multi-cloud just sort of should appear.
Yeah.
To them.
But I mean, say for example, the way that the networking is in Google Cloud is very different from AWS, where if you want to do something multi-region in AWS, it's going to be really a lot of work setting up.
You need to set up peering
VPCs
between
per
regions.
region
There's a lot of
routing and a whole bunch of stuff, where that's kind of just done for you in Google Cloud. So, some of the stuff where you think, it's going to be hard or I have to do it this way, when you switch to a different cloud, it's like, okay, that's totally different. Particularly, there's a lot of serverless stuff, which they look the same, but when you use it, they're quite different. Cloud functions and Lambda versus Azure functions are very different things.
Very different, yeah. I have used Lambda a little bit in the past, so I know what you're talking about there. And it's interesting in this article, he says you could pick one cloud. In fact, he does recommend do that, pick one cloud, specialize in one cloud, but know the other clouds a little bit. right? Know them enough so that you know where the strengths and weaknesses are, right? He says you could pick one cloud to get good and stick with it. That's perfectly valid career bet. And if you do bet your career on one cloud, you should totally pick Google Cloud.
Of course.
I have my reasons. And he links off to another article, which I haven't read, but I will have a read.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess underpinning all of this multi-cloud or hybrid multi-cloud even, it's all like Kubernetes is one that kind of a kind of abstraction as well as a platform on, I guess, a cloud platform. And so if you are going to be doing anything that's multi-cloud, it will most likely involve Kubernetes in some way.
Right.
Say.
Right. Yep. So get to know your Kubernetes. Yep. Another, probably the last sort of point we'll point out here. He refers to a colleague of his by the name of Lynn Langett, an independent consultant and one of the cloud technologists I most respect. Estimates that she spends around 40% of her consulting time on Google Cloud, 40% on AWS, and 20% on Azure. So does that reflect the market? Do you think that would reflect the market as well there, Ida?
I just go by market cap, which is how much money, how much revenue they're getting as well.
How much revenue they're getting, yeah, I suppose.
It would be nice to see Google Cloud at 40. Well, actually, I'd like to see more actually cloud providers, but just a bit of added spice.
Yeah, look, my feeling just on that at the moment, obviously AWS is the top dog, but Google and people see Google Cloud as the underdog, but I think Google Cloud's probably in the most demand at the moment. People want to move on to Google Cloud. Certainly, trying to get the people to do it is a challenge. I think that's where most of the hold up is. But that's how it seems in Australia anyway. That's how the market seems in Australia. And Azure was kind of like they were a bit late to the market, and I think everyone's a bit over Microsoft, to be honest with you. So they've got to kind of get over that hurdle. Anyway, great article. Look at this is where they talk about T-shaped skills as well in there. We mentioned that before. If you want to, I don't think I'm quite ready for it yet to bust out into another cloud, but I know some people are keen to look at other things. I'm really happy working with Google Cloud, so I'm going to continue doing that.
Yeah. I mean, something interesting to try is just have DNS in AWS and your services somewhere else as well. I mean, if you want to just easily segregate stuff out, you can do it that way.
But then you got all these extra logins, all these extra idea. You got to log in here and log in there and have 50 million windows open.
Yeah. Same password for both. No.
Of course you have the same password on everything. Isn't that how it's done in 2022?
Easy.
Yeah, easy. All right, let's wrap it up here with a little bit of housekeeping. We have a new website. Yes, so I put all that effort into the website last year. Anyway, we decided to scrap all that, and we've got a new one. It actually it hangs off the Kasna web presence right now. So it's you can just go to kasna.com.au/GCP-life, and then that will get you to the website. You'll find a nice little playlist there, and you'll see each of the episodes, and you'll see little pictures of all of us and all the guests that have been on the show. We're also syndicated all over the place now. We're on Spotify. We've got an RSS feed, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Blueberry, Podcast Index, and iTunes. Yes, if you look in iTunes, you'll find us. Boy, I tell you what, just getting this, there's a lot going on here to get this description right and fill this in and fill that in. A lot of little details got to get right to make sure this is appearing and looking nice in all the places. But it's there now. It's there and it's looking good, and it'll stay like that now for the foreseeable future.
Cool.
Yeah, and it's really easy too. All I've got to do is post. Make a single post, I put the necessary text in there, upload the file, reference the file, and bang, it all just happens automatically.
Very nice. Automation is
nice.
Good, isn't it?
It is good. Yeah, it is good. And we are working on a couple little functions and stuff in the background to automate a few other little tasks that we want done. But we'll let you know about all of those as they come along, because that's all content for the show, Ida. It's all content. It's true. It's true. All right, well, look, that's about it for us for this fortnight. 2022, here we come. Let's see how this year goes, and it's not the skullthuggery that happened in the last 2 years. I really want things to go smoothly.
Yeah, please. No extra variants, please.
No extra variants. No, that's right. We're going to have plenty more news, plenty more content, and hopefully we'll have a few guests as well during the year and a couple of special shows. That's what we're planning as well. And of course, this show is sponsored by Kasna. At Kasna, we make your Google Cloud solutions possible. And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel, Between Two Clouds, where you'll see our CEO and CTO just discussing Google Cloud and tech around Google Cloud. And of course, you can contact us on the email, gcplife@kasna.com.au, and go and check out our new website. I told you the URL before. It's kasna.com.au/gcplife. Anything else from you, Ida?
No, it's been a really great chat.
All right, thanks, Ida. And thanks, everyone. We'll catch you in a fortnight. All right, here we go. Show recorded.
Cool. That was good.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Good. I read the article. I must read some of these articles 3 times. And then we come to talk about it, like, oh crap, what was this article all about again?